We are now 24 hours away from BC's loss to Virginia Tech, and we're going to look at some of the takeaways. What can you kind of glean from a loss like this, and where does BC go from here? We'll get into that and all that more on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You are Locked On Boston College.
This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com with the promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. All right, we're now 24 hours away past the loss in Virginia. The loss to the Virginia Tech Hokies, a bad loss. There's no way to get around this. This was one of the worst losses I think BC's had in a long time. Just the way the team looked was tough to watch. You know, the offensive line, we'll get to in a second, clearly was the biggest issue. But we're going to get into today 3 takeaways. What are some things that we can kind of glean from this game? It's not going to be all positives. I'm going to tell you some of that right off the bat. From this game moving forward, and how does it impact the rest of the season? Like what are the possibilities for BC moving forward? We'll get into all that on today's show. So the first takeaway, that offensive line. I mean, I don't know how else you can talk about anything else but this offensive line, because it impacts everything. I think I saw a stat, and I don't have it right in front of me right now because I don't like to do a ton of stats on this show, that BC's has like 16 rushing yards, I think, total season, something like that, some obscenely low number. They are dead last in the country in rushing yards. Dead last. That's bad. That is really bad. And that is just like a key indicator of how dysfunctional this offensive line is. It's just like they can't do anything. Pat Garwo is just getting handed the ball. He's getting hit right off the bat. And, you know, Jurkovec is trying to do a few things. I feel like the only rushes they're getting is from Zay Flowers and a few from Jurkovec, where the standard, you know, typical, you know, draws or off tackle type of plays are getting nothing. They're getting less than nothing. It seems like they're getting minus yards on most of those plays. So that part's a major issue with the offensive line. And then Jurkovec got sacked 5 times. And it seemed like he got hit roughly 3,545 times. Not really, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like it just seemed like every time he went back, he got hit. He got back, he got hit. He got back, he got hit. And that was tough to watch. And, you know, this is scary because Boston College is known. I mean, like, what do people joke about? That we're O-line university. Clearly we're not. There's teams like Notre Dame, Alabama that have much richer heritages, but BC's got a nice one too. They've got some, you know, a long history. This is only a 2-game sample. The worst offensive line I've ever seen at Boston College, and I've been following this team for a long time. Just don't look like they have any clue what they're doing. And if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, and I have those numbers up on Eagle Insider for our VIP members, you can see who the issues are. And it's not just it's everybody, but to an extent, there's some bigger issues going on. Now, on Saturday's game, Ozzie Trapillo, who is probably their best offensive lineman up to, you know, in the Rutgers game, was out with an injury, and Hafley says he hopes he'll be back this weekend. We'll have to wait to see what that means. But he was out. They lost, who was okay, but not great. And then when they replaced him with Nick Thomas, who had no business being on the field. He just got absolutely destroyed by some really good Virginia Tech defenders. And they slowed it down on the replays, but there was one play where it was Thomas one-on-one with an edge defender on Virginia Tech, and I don't have the name in front of me. He looked like he was on ice skates. The guy shoved him once, and Thomas just barreled over. And then every play after that, it's just going right over to Jurkovec. So I don't want to blame any one player because it's a systemic thing at this point. What do they do to fix this? Where do they go from here? How do you get this offensive line going so that you can get any sort of run game going? And not have Jurkovec getting killed? That's a big issue. And the scary part about this is they had the first two games against Virginia Tech and Rutgers, two teams that you before the season were like, they could win those games. You look ahead at what defensive line BC has coming up on their schedule. That offensive line has to make a jump fast, very fast, because I'm thinking when I'm looking at this, you have your Notre Dame's, Clemson's, Florida State's, Louisville, Syracuse, you name it. They only have a few more teams left, like UConn, even they're not a gimme, and Maine and Duke is playing well. Where are the wins going to come if the offensive line doesn't take that big jump? They have to play better. This is not an if, and, or buts. And so on Sunday's media availability, Hafley talked about that. Andy Backstrom of Rivals asked him, what are you going to do? Like, how do you fix this? What are some, and you can't just say coach him up, because that's, if you ask the coaches, sometimes that's what they'll say. And you got to push him a little bit there. And Backstrom did a nice job of pushing him. And he said, the quote was something on the line of, that they were going to have to kind of look and see what each guy does well and try to go from there. I think it's important. He said, here's the exact quote. Sorry. Systematically, we got to figure out what they can do and handle so that they can execute at a high level. And then there's some things we talked about this morning that you'll see next week where we just don't ask them to do so much. I think I think Hafley kind of nails it there, right? The seeing what they have to do, what they do and can't do is a whole other story. I know some folks are upset that he doesn't know that, but it is what it is. But simplifying things, get down to the brass tacks of what an offensive lineman can and can't do. Like, figure out like the simplest way to teach it to these guys right off the bat. Don't get into the fancy scheme like the zone blocks or whatever it is that's tripping these guys up. Just show them how to be simple and have Googs go out there and teach them the simplistic way of doing this and see if that works. Because you have Maine next week. And yes, I know some folks out there going, oh, Maine's not a gimme anymore. They'll be okay. I'm telling you, they'll be okay. But that's a perfect way to get your feet wet with this. Go out there, try these new things. And he's not going to tell you what they are because he doesn't want to give him an edge, which is scary, even saying that that's something you have to think about. But that's where you start. That you got to have a first start there, because the week after that is Florida State. And as I said on yesterday's show with Mitch Wolf, which if you have not checked it out already, it's only up on YouTube. It's an instant game reaction after the game. You have to go to youtube.com and find Locked On BC and hit subscribe. And it's right there. You can listen to Mitch and I talk about the game. But we were saying, they've got a very good defensive line too. And BC is going to has 2 weeks to kind of figure, but it's scary. There's no way around this, folks. This offensive line is a mess. And acting because it's only 2 games, but what have we seen so far? What have they shown that says that this is something that's fixable? That this is something that the staff is able to fix? Okay. So I look at this and I say, it'll be an issue all year long. And this weekend's game just proved it to me. Now, in a moment, I'm going to talk about Jurkovec because he's another polarizing figure from last week. I'll give you a little bit about my thoughts about his performance and what my thoughts are about where his season could go. Now, earlier I just mentioned our friends over at Underdog. This is I love Underdog. This weekend for some of the my pick'ems. I was doing daily, picking different players. I had it's in Miami game. I also picked some for I got Justin Jefferson for his score. You pick basically the over under on player stats. And I want to tell you about the easiest, most fun way to spice it up. You just look at your favorite team, like Boston College, if you're outside of the state. You could pick whether you think they'll end up with higher or lower that number in the week's game. Basically, find Pat Garwo's numbers and pick under it. And you can win up to 20 times your single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. I'm telling you, I just picked this up and I played it in about 2 minutes. It was so easy, fun, and it's good. I love it. Pick between 2 and 5 players for your pick'em slip. Get all your picks right, and you'll take home some cold hard cash. It's simple to get started. Just head to underdogfantasy.com or download the app. Sign up with promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Again, $100 free. You ain't gonna beat that. You gotta check it out. So go to Underdog Fantasy and promo code Locked On. All right. So the other person that we're going to talk about in terms of our takeaways from this game is quarterback Phil Jurkovec. Now, I'm not going to get into the statistics of what he did based off of, just watching and seeing how he presented himself on the field and the body language of what he did was more than any stat can show. So the game starts. Jurkovec tries to thread a pass he should have never thrown to Jaden Williams, who was not even. I think it would have been an illegal touch if Jaden Williams even caught it. And he throws an interception. From there, Jurkovec pressed for the next quarter and a half, just pressing, trying to throw things that weren't there. Really, trying to do too much. And on top of that, he's getting hit. As I said, the offensive line is doing him no favors. He's getting put on his butt over and over again. And you could see it. You could see it wearing on Jurkovec. You could see that he was like, not happy with the players around him. He was barking at everybody. And it was just not a good sight. And then finally, he kind of figured things out in the end of the second quarter into the third quarter, had about another good quarter before things kind of unraveled again. It was not a good outing for him. It wasn't a lot of his fault, though, because he was just getting killed. But there were times he definitely should have had, quicker reads or, just made a better throw, and he just didn't do it, right? I can think of specifically, there's a pass to Jalen Gill, and he just missed him, and he overthrew it, and Gill was right there. He could have hit him for a nice pass. But when you're getting hit that much, you start to get the jitters, and I get it. And a guy like Jurkovec, he is a fierce competitor out there. He wants to win. He wants to do the best that he can. And I get the sense that he wants to be the leader to do it. So when the rest of his team is not able, Garwo is not effective because of the line and the offensive line left and right, it seems to me that he puts it on his own shoulders to go out there and do it himself. That he has to go out there and win the game himself. And that's when things start to fall apart. That's when the offensive scheme starts to fall apart. It turns more into hero ball, which is more of a bad. It seems to work here as well, where he is just hawking, and not really following the schemes and system that McNulty has put in place for him. So Halfley talked about him as well on Sunday and talked about his frustration level. He says, you'd like to have him reel it back, but sometimes it's pretty hard when you're getting hit. It's just being honest with you. He's a competitor and he wants to win. He keeps getting up and he keeps getting back in there and competing. I'd love for everyone to keep a smile on their face and keep moving forward, but I don't think at times that's the way the world works. That's right there, right? This season's going to be interesting. As I said in the first segment, it all goes as far as the offensive line goes. And if there are games like this week, where, it was last week too, but Jurkovec is getting killed out there. I think at times, and he's pressing and he's getting hit, it might make more sense to put Emmett Morehead in at times. And it's not because I want to see Emmett Morehead and what he can do. It's because I don't want to see Phil Jurkovec get hurt again. And I think he almost is an enemy in that case. Like, this is a guy that just cannot, like, he doesn't want to go down, and he will just keep getting back up, just like what Halfley said, right? So I wouldn't mind seeing Morehead more, if not because Jurkovec's bad or any of that sense, just to save him from himself in those moments where he's just trying and pressing, and that kind of piece I think is so crucial. And I think this is another piece where Halfley and McNulty need to work with him on and fit the scheme to what he can do, because I don't see Jurkovec getting the ball out as quickly as I think you'd like to see. There's a lot of times where he's reading and it goes on for so long. And, when you're a quarterback getting hit the way he's getting hit, you want to get rid of that ball as fast as you can. And I'm almost to the point where I want to see him, just get it out to the first read. Like, just if you don't see it, just get rid of the ball. Just get rid of it. Otherwise, he's going to get planted over and over again. And that I think that's where we're at until that offensive line figures in. And so, with Jurkovec, it was a rough outing. But again, I think moving forward, the big worry for me is him getting hurt. Like, you saw it, like he's just going down on his shoulder, and it's just like, when is he not going to get up? And we've seen him get hurt so many times. And I'm sure he's already dinged up, but he's working through it. That's a major issue moving forward, and his health is going to be something I think that's going to be another key for the rest of the season. It's one of my takeaways for the remainder of 2022. Now, in a moment, I'm going to go to the other side of the ball because I am really, this is a group I was impressed with, and I think there's a lot to take away from in terms of positives, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So, as you gear up into the fall, you need the right people on your team to help your businesses fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond of the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is Locked On BC. AJ Black here. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're doing extra episodes. As I said earlier, we had an extra episode on Saturday with Mitch Wolf, only on YouTube. So if you're on a podcast platform right now, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel too, so you can get in on that. The great part of YouTube is you can see other commenters. You can see the Rutgers fans that seem to can't quit me. They're still commenting on everything I post, and I love them for that because I'll take clicks no matter how I get it. But you'll get all of that here on Locked On BC, only on YouTube. So check that out. Now, I loved the defense. This is what we're talking about for our final segment. I loved the play of BC's defense, and I know this is Pat Garwell getting hit. I am not going to find another picture for this. The defense, if you look at how the defense played, you can kind of break it down. Yeah, they let up 27 points. That's probably not the best thing. And their tackling at times was not great. But there were they let up 7 points on a short field again. You look at that game, Jurkovec's interception at the very beginning of the game. I think they got the ball on the 12-yard line. That's similar to what happened last week against Rutgers. They just gave up a short field. You let up 7 points there. You also let up a touchdown on a play you just have to tip your cap on. That touchdown pass, the pass actually was like a 50-yard pass that was threaded, and I forget the name of the wide receiver for Virginia Tech, but Elijah Jones was in coverage. That pass was perfect. And there's nothing you can do but tip your hat on that. That led to a touchdown. And then there was a perfectly blocked run by Keyshawn King. So the 3 touchdowns, 2 of them were on excellent execution by the offense, and 1 was on a short field, and then a couple of field goals, and that was it. Now, I thought the team did great in terms of their aggressiveness. I thought the linebackers played much better than they did against Rutgers. They were much more confident in what they were doing, attacking to the ball. And if you look at the drive summary, and I talked about this with Mitch on Saturday, there were so many drives that Virginia Tech made that just ended quick because BC's defense got them off the field. And, there were different players that I think stepping up than last week. So against Rutgers, it was Donovan Azaraku who had a big game. Against Virginia Tech, there was a couple. There was Nito Ekpala who had a big game. Cam Arnold had a decent game. And you saw the tackles. I saw Isaiah Henderson in there having a decent game. Chris Banks, who was not playing before, have a good game. So up, they played much better. And what I don't want to see happen, and this is a takeaway that we're going to use moving forward, is I don't want to see what happened in 2015, 2021 happen to this team, where BC has, some really good defensive plays that gets wiped out by no offense. And then the defense just tries to hold on and hold on and hold on. And then eventually they let up enough points that BC's offense can't cover that, right? I feel like that is where this team is heading right now. And I worry about that because it's now 2 straight games where that defense has had to stay out there and try to stop things because the offense can't stay out there long enough. And there's only so much they can do. I mean, it was that first drive, I think, in the second half. BC's defensive line made a nice stop, and I forget exactly who the play was, but they showed up to Cam Horsley and another defensive lineman, and they're already sucking wind. And they ended up doing fine for the rest of the quarter, and they were okay. But you could just tell that kind of mentality where they have to keep going out there and they don't get the rest that they need in between drives can wear on a defense. And when you play a better, more well-rounded team that can throw the ball, and that those teams are going to take advantage of that. Rutgers has a good running offense, or they're showing that they've had a good running offense. Virginia Tech, I mean, I wasn't really all that impressed, but they scored some points. Think about when you play, just even look at Florida State with Jordan Travis, if he's healthy enough to play, or even Syracuse with Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader, who are playing out of their minds right now, or Louisville. I mean, there's some good offenses that are going to come through their schedule that I think we're going to test them. And what my biggest concern and my takeaway about this is I think the defense will be fine, but if they're asked to do too much, which I think, again, goes back to that offensive line, I think that's going to cause some issues for the defense down the future. Like, they're just going to get worn down, and that's going to happen. Okay? So that's my 3 takeaways from this game. I said it was not going to be pleasant, but those are my three. Also, Danny Longman, great punting out there, 76-shot punter. And I got a great tweet about that, about someone saying, Danny, that was long, man, or something like that. Yeah, I love that. It was a Georgia Tech writer who gave that. And before I go, I want to say the Ram Horn of Haiti, the chauffeur, he's always in there commenting, and I want to give a shout out to this comment that he said. Damn poor AJ. We all have to go through this as fans and former alumnus. This is AJ's job. Stay strictly, brother. Hopefully Halfley figures things out, man. I think that's what all fans are hoping for right now. And it's on to Maine, and we'll have a little bit more recap and everything in between on tomorrow's show. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. And if you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, slam that subscribe button, hit the comment section as well. Love hearing from all of you out there about your thoughts on BC football. This is AJ Black. Again, we're the only podcast that does this every single day. It's a labor of love for all of you. I love doing this, and I will continue doing this even as the team struggles. You'll get a daily podcast from me. Gonna get basketball season going too, so there'll be some optimism coming up soon. So on Tuesday, make sure to check in. We'll be back. See you soon.